Hi everybody, welcome to Sugar Shop Bakery's Valentine's Day cookie decorating class. In addition to everything that came in your decorating kit, you're going to want to have some paper towels and some sharp scissors handy to cut the icing bags with. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and just run quickly through everything that came in your kit. Everybody's kit came with 2 of our rectangle cookies for the envelopes, 2 hearts, and then of course the 2 lips. This wooden scribe tool that's in there is what we use to move the icing around a bit to get it to self-level a little bit more than it already does on its own. Got some sprinkle packs in there along with your edible ink marker. A note about this marker is that you're going to want to wait at least 20 to 24 hours for the icing on the cookie to completely dry before you start to use it. Otherwise, you're going to start to poke holes through the icing. Royal icing can be a little bit tricky sometimes because it may look dry, but that's because it dries from the outside in, so it's going to get a kind of like a hard coating over the top of it first while the inside of it's still dry. So just make sure you wait long enough to go ahead and add your details with the marker. So the first thing we're going to want to do is you're going to notice that your icing bags have some separation in them. This is completely normal. It's just kind of like how ketchup is, how the water separates from the rest of the ingredients, and that's exactly what these have done. So you're going to want to go ahead and kind of massage each of your icing bags around for about a minute or 2 each to get the separation to go away and get all the icing consistency back to normal again. You'll start to see just after a short time that separation started to go away on the surface there, but you still need to keep going for another minute or 2 to get your icing and the ingredients all incorporated back together again. So I've already done this with my icing bags here and I'm ready to go. So I'm gonna put that aside. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with getting the icing bags cut open. So what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna see a seam along the bags here. Go ahead and just flatten the bag out a bit. And then make sure you have a sharp pair of scissors. And the size of the hole that you're gonna wanna cut open is gonna be smaller to begin with. Once all the outlining is done, if you so choose, you can cut the bag open a little bit more to get the icing to come out faster. But for now, we're just gonna cut it open, I'd say about the thickness of a Sharpie marker. So go ahead and have one of your paper towels handy so you can go ahead and do some practice lines on there just to get familiar and more comfortable with the pressure of the icing. So what you're gonna wanna do when you get started on your cookies is give just the slightest bit of push out of the bag. You'll see that the icing starts to ball up a little bit. You're gonna touch down and then just go ahead and pull for your outlining. So just take a couple minutes with each of the colors if you want. Go ahead and get the tips cut open on those and do some practice lines on your paper towel if you want to familiarize yourself with the icing bag, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So as I mentioned before, you're gonna wanna give a little bit of pressure on the icing. Go ahead and touch down and then get a little bit of lift. The further you pull away from the cookie with the icing, the more control you actually have over it. While we let those edges dry, we can go ahead and go on to outlining the other ones. Touch down and then pull up. Let your edges dry for just a few moments there. Now that we're gonna start filling in the cookies, you can go ahead and flatten out your bag a little bit and then cut the hole just a little bit larger. Just a smidgen, because I still want to be able to go back and do the detailing and the outlining on the envelope afterwards in the heart there. So the icing consistency that we're working with here is one that we can both outline and fill the cookie in with, and it will go ahead and level out. We might need help a little bit with the scribe tool or just by shaking the cookie around a little bit. So when we go for outlining, I like to carefully get right up to the edge there. Then you can start to kind of speed up a little bit if you're comfortable now that you've gotten the edge a little bit cleaner. And royal icing does start to crust over and dry fairly quickly, so you do want to work at a speed that you're comfortable with, of course, but something quick enough that we can go ahead and get this self-leveled out before it starts to crust over and dry on the top. And you'll notice how I didn't really leave any spaces between when I was flooding, so be generous with the amount of icing that you're pushing into here because you want it to have enough to go ahead and self-level. And then with your scribe tool here, these can be used to kind of push the icing a little bit closer to the edges. Because as you can see on this side here, I didn't get as close. So if you just use your scribe tool, you can just go ahead and push it out to the edge. And just move in a circular motion, pushing outwards. And then if you're working on a surface, either your counter or some parchment paper is a good thing to work on. You can go ahead to get the rest of this real smoothed out and just give the cookie just a little bit of a shake. Nothing too much that you're gonna cause icing to go over the edge, but you can see that it really smoothed out with just a little bit of movement there. So we're gonna let this dry for a little bit. We'll go ahead and move on to the lips here. So we're just gonna fill in the top of the lips first, because if we were to do the top and then go straight into the bottom, you'll find that we'll lose the seam in between the lips here, and it would all kind of just become one flooded plane. Once again, just go ahead and use your scribe tool to get all the edges smoothed out a bit. Do be careful and gentle of your edges though, because you can just end up pushing icing right through them and then the icing could overflow off onto the edge. And once again, I'm just gonna give it a little shake to help level it out. You may find that some air bubbles come in here. You just go ahead and use the tip of your tool to pop those. Go ahead and grab your white so we can get the little reflection on there. Then we're gonna push this one aside because like I mentioned before, we want this to dry before we go ahead and fill in the bottom there so that we can keep the seam in between the lips there. So we're gonna go ahead and fill in the heart here. What we want to make sure of is that we get it filled in and we then can add the white on top of it, which is called a wet on wet technique. And that basically is exactly what it sounds like. We're adding wet icing on top to an already wet surface. And that allows the icing, like it is on the lip here, to get leveled with the rest of it. When we go to add the details at the end, the outlining and whatnot, we wanna make sure the cookie's completely dry, because otherwise, just like the reflection on the lip here and how you're gonna see on the heart here, the icing levels right into it. And we don't want that to happen with our outlining at the end. When you're flooding, make sure to fill in all the spots. You wanna make sure there's enough icing in here that it can level together and that there's not gonna end up being any divots or anything in it. Just gonna go ahead and give this a quick shake again so we can then go back and add the white dots to it. And at first it looks like the dots are gonna just sit right on top, but after just a few moments, you'll start to see that they are going to self-level into the already existing icing. If you wanna help get them a little bit level, you can also go ahead back in and use your scribe and just carefully dot them. Now that we have these steps done on our cookies, we're just gonna wanna give them a few more minutes to go ahead and dry on top a little bit and get crusted over. So while we're waiting for those other ones to dry, I of course encourage you to, you know, come up with your own designs, do whatever you want, or just follow along with the video, whichever you prefer. But all of the cookie kits came with some sprinkle packs. So I figured while we're waiting, why not do another cookie and go ahead and use those. Now we've let the border dry a little bit. We'll go ahead and fill that in. Go ahead and grab some of your sprinkles. And just sprinkle away. I like to keep all the sprinkles right on the icing, so it's another helpful thing your scribe tool can help you with. We're gonna let the lips dry a little bit longer. We can go ahead and do the outline on our envelope cookie. If your icing has kind of started to dry on the tip of your bag a little bit, the easiest way is to get a paper towel and just go ahead and pinch off the tip of it there, so you're starting with a clean tip. And then we're just gonna give a little bit of pressure. We're just gonna touch down with the icing. It's a little bit easier for me to rotate the cookie. You can do the same if you need. While the icing's still wet there, you can go ahead and get your little heart and put it on the envelope seal. And then for the envelope cookie, you're gonna wanna let this one sit aside for at least 20 to 24 hours before you start to add the details with your edible ink marker. For the sake of the video though, I do have one that is dry and ready to go. Here. And then of course with your marker, you can just add whatever little design you want here. There we are. Add our details of the outlining to our heart here. Sometimes if you're not giving enough pressure, the icing will have a little bit of a disconnect here. It's okay if it's still wet, you can go back in and connect it back up. Your scribe tool to smooth out your lines if you need. And by now we should be able to go back and go ahead and fill in the bottom layer of the lips. My red icing has been sitting, so just go ahead and pinch off the tip there to get it clean again. And then you just want to keep a little bit of distance, not pushing too much into the upper lip there, and then go ahead and fill it in. Give it a little bit of shake to get those lines out. here we are.
I hope you all enjoyed decorating your cookies. Please follow along on my Instagram @SugarShopBakery for any upcoming decorating kits.